Is this the real cause of the Ohio train derailment? It may not be what it seems. Now, while the world has been busy thinking about whatever mainstream media wants us to think about, which lately has been about this Chinese balloons floating over the United States and Canada, and of course being shot down, there's real emergencies and there's real tragedies that are much bigger, yet get almost no attention at all. And while we're all distracted, one of the worst, if not the worst, environmental disaster in the United States history just happened. But with the silence, it just leads to more speculation and more questions. So in this video, I'm going to break down what just happened with the train derailment in Palestine, Ohio, why the Chinese balloons seem to be getting more airtime, how bad the train accident was, the chemicals it was carrying, what the potential fallout is, and I'm going to speculate as to what and why this happened and what this means moving forward. So let's go. All right, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss, and I make these videos, of course, to change the way you think about money, because almost everything we see, hear, and have learned is wrong. Now today we're going to be diving a little bit off the path of just money, but of course it always comes back to the money, because of course money makes the world go round. Now today we're going to talk about one of the largest disasters in US history, but first we're going to talk about balloons. Why are we going to start with talking about balloons? Well, because that's what they want us to talk about. Who's they? Well, mainstream media. The question is, since we always talk about what they want us to talk about, whatever they put on the news, whether it's Ukraine or whether it's the balloon, we're going to talk about it. And of course, it's been all over the news. First, there was one big balloon, and of course, we waited till it went over the whole United States before we shot it down. So maybe collected all the data it wanted. We don't know. Is it spy? Is it from China? Of course, China denies it. But now there's more and more and more. We shot one down over Canada, over the Yukon, over Lake Huron. 4 mysterious balloons now. It's not just one, multiple balloons. We have a picture here of the FBI, and our government, our all-knowing, all-seeing government, is still stumped. They can't figure it out. They're still stumped by the latest objects, flying objects, as friction with China grows. I'm going to leave this headline up here for a minute because, again, if we think about whatever they want us to think about, whatever they put in the news is what we talk about, whether we're outraged over some celebrity like Ye, or we're talking about Chinese balloons. Why are we talking about this? The better question is not what is going on with the balloons. The better question is, why do they want us talking about the balloons? And then, as we move into the next story, why do they not want us talking about that? That's the better question. Now, we can leave this, and I'll pause, and if you want, I'll do a video on it. You can leave me a comment. But I would pose that the reason why they want us talking about the balloons is because of this: friction with China. Why do they want us to have friction with China? Now, China's been buying farmland. China buys up all our strategic land of our military bases. They've stolen our IP. They've been caught paying professors with treason. We don't care about any of that, but now we care about Chinese balloons. Why? Why do they want us talking about it, and why now? If you want a whole video on that, leave me a comment down below. But like I said, now let's find out why they don't want us talking about this, which is a real disaster, like a real big problem. What am I talking about? You can see this picture right here. It's been a disaster. You might or may not have heard about it. A few mainstream media outlets have covered it just enough to say they covered it without really giving it any airtime. So if you look online, you'll see maybe they posted a quick story about it, but it hasn't really been given any airtime. And of course, it's one of the largest disasters that we've seen in US history. We have 100 cars derailed and crashed together. You can see this big fiery explosion. It happened in East Palestine, not Palestine in the Middle East, Palestine in Ohio. And of the 100 cars, 20 of them were carrying hazardous materials. And the hazardous material, 5 of them were carrying this vinyl chloride, which is one of the most hazardous chemicals that can be carried. And like I said, it's led to potentially one of the worst environmental disasters we've seen on US soil. Now, I'll just say that we've seen 2 of the worst man-made environmental disasters within the last year under the President Biden's administration. I'm talking about the Nord Stream pipeline blowing up the gas pipeline in the ocean, environmental disaster, and now blowing up a train with 5 cars full of vinyl chloride. All right, let's keep digging in to see exactly what's going on here. Now, The chemicals, to get into it a little bit, it's vinyl chloride, it's a monomer, and it's used to make PVC. Now, if you're a chemist, I'm not. You can feel free to leave me a comment down below and correct on this. I'm doing my best to bring this information. None of this is really that important at the end of the day, unless maybe you live there or you're a chemist. Now, it's been spewing hazardous and flammable gas. It was doing that. And so what they decided to do is to come in and just blow it up and try to burn it off. And it created a mushroom cloud like this that you might have seen pictures of, or maybe not. Like I said, it hasn't been getting a lot of air press, but it sent up this mushroom cloud, and look at the fallout that's being created. Now, this vinyl chloride, it boils at just 8 degrees Fahrenheit. Boils at 8 degrees, which means it has to be liquefied, it has to be frozen and transported, which makes it very, very volatile. Now, as you can see, it created this massive plume of smoke, which basically put this up into the air. It can mix with water, with the moisture in the air, and create, yes, acid rain. It can bring all this back down on the ground and spread it all over. Now, part of the somewhat controversial, conspiratorial, if I dare say that, part about this is some of the best farmland, agricultural land that we have in the United States, and could be really damaged, maybe forever, maybe for a long period of time. If all of this chemical falls on this farmland, what happens? Now, like I said, they burned it off on purpose. They're hoping to incinerate it before it gets to be that big of a deal. We'll find out if it is. We'll break that down in a second. But just so you know, OSHA, which is supposed to keep workers safe, they limit the exposure to vinyl chloride to just one part per million in an 8-hour period. Now, if you live anywhere within this blast radius, you're certainly going to be getting more than that. Now, if we look at what happens if you're exposed to this, we can see some of the effects right here. You get, it says vinyl chloride is very toxic. I already broke that down. What happens if you're exposed to it? Well, you get damage to the nervous system. Sounds pretty bad. Change in the immune system. What else changes our immune system that they've been giving almost everybody lately? That seems to be having lots of bad side effects that they're trying to cover up for. All I can do is ask questions, but it changes the immune system. You might know what I'm talking about. You can leave me a comment on that down below. It also decreases your bone strength, makes people weak. We can see that it also helps develop cancer, like liver, lung, and several other types of cancer. Sounds awesome. It affects a person's liver, kidney, lung, spleen, nervous system, and blood. And it says here again, back to the kind of exposure level, 1 million parts per minute or more in air. So people exposed to more than that, more than 1 million, 1 in a million parts per million in air, may have an increased risk of miscarriage and birth defects. What else have they recently given to the mass population that's supposedly giving miscarriage and birth defects? Kind of interesting. Damage to male sperm producing organs. So that's what this chemical does. It's pretty nasty stuff, and it's going everywhere. Now, it's not just going over all the farmland. Now, just real quick side note, there was lots of other hazardous chemicals on that train. Here's a whole list of them. I'm not going to go through that. It's not the important part of this video. But what's important is we have to look at like what the fallout is going to be of this. This is one of the key pieces I think we need to talk about, which is right now we have lots of people, boots on the ground, reports, farmers, etc., saying that their animals are dying like crazy, just dropping dead. Fish are coming up, upside down in the water. Frogs are dying. People raising foxes, they're dying. Animals are dying everywhere in a very large radius to this. All right, so it's already happening. Now, as I said, it poses massive health risks from all the carcinogens that are there. And here's where it starts getting really bad, is it spilled into the Ohio River. Now, what makes one of many things that makes the United States so great is that we have the most arable, the best farmland in the world. And also what we have is some of the best water tributaries throughout the nation. So we have all these river systems that flow through the United States. We have the Mississippi right here. Now, the Ohio River runs right down here, and right here is where the blast happened. So if you want to affect all of this farmland, you could insert something right here. Now, if you watch some of these movies on these psychopaths that want to blow up the world or kill half the world, right? They want to go after kind of like a high value target that would deliver to a lot of people. So you hear about attacking waterways, water systems, things like that a lot, right? You get into the water system here and it just so happens to take all of that out, which is sort of like what just happened. The train happened to go off right at that river. Now, of course, the experts are saying, don't worry, don't worry. They burned it all off. It's all good. None of this is bad. It's all going to be okay. Sort of like right here, when they said after 9/11 that the air around the trade centers was good and it was no problem, except for it wasn't. Now we see here, former EPA head admits she was wrong to tell people, to tell New Yorkers post 9/11 that the air was safe. She was wrong. I shouldn't have said that. I was wrong. It wasn't safe. Yeah, how about you're sorry? How about you killed a lot of people because of that? And that's exactly what I suspect will happen. They're saying, oh, it's all fine, it's all good. You guys just stay there. Oh, never mind the birth defects, the low sperm counts, the miscarriages, the immune problems. It's probably from something else. So that's what we can see from the fallout. Now let's get into some of this stuff where we start to draw some speculative, as your favorite part, right? Now, what's interesting about this is that, as I said, the mainstream has been pretty silent on this. We only think about, or we only talk about what they want us to talk about, which is right now they want us talking about the balloon. And I don't know why. And we can talk about why they want to. Leave me a comment, we'll make a video about that. But right, they don't want us talking about this. However, what's interesting is that there was a movie made, right here it's called The White Noise, and this movie was made about a train derailment in Palestine, Ohio, last year. And the people that live in the town of Palestine were actually extras in the movie. It's pretty interesting. Sort of like, what was that movie they made about a virus that spread around the world right before it happened? Something like that. But they literally made a movie about a train derailment in the same place that it just happened with the same people that are affected. Coincidence, I'm sure, maybe, but it's interesting, right? Now there have been some reports of some of this information being scrubbed from mainstream news. There's a lot of people talking about there's reporters being arrested that are there, boots on the ground. Now in my investigative journalism, what I found is there was one reporter arrested. Apparently he was arrested because he was being rowdy or rambunctious, asking some bad questions or whatever. So it doesn't appear to be as conspiratorial as it makes it seem. However, it does appear that history is being rewritten in real time. When I say rewritten, it's about how they're choosing to tell this story. Now, what happens is whoever's taking responsibility for this has to come up with the story. And of course, whoever's taking responsibility to come up with the story is going to downplay the situation. And of course, the politicians are going to run with that story as well. But Hollywood got it. Pretty interesting. All right, now what I see really happening here is a sign of the times, and this is where it starts getting into our money and what we're going to do with it. Okay, what we're at a point where society is breaking down. We're at the end of a an empire, right? There's 8 stages of a 250-year empire run or a 250-year Democrat run, however you want to look at that, or democracy. And we're at the end of this, all right? What we can see is that our transportation sector has been breaking down. Trains are derailing, can't run on time. Planes can't seem to run on time. I fly a lot, at least once or twice a month. They do not run on time anymore. We just saw in, I believe it was around Christmas, Southwest Airlines had the largest airline fiasco they've ever had in the history of their airline, where they had to basically cancel all of their flights for a day, which basically shut down almost all the other airlines. That just happened. And then right after that, we saw the FAA shut down, had the largest outage and shut down all the flights in the United States. Right after that, boom, boom, 1 and 2. We had barely averted a rail strike was that weeks ago, months ago? Now, did this have something to do with it? Were there not good employees working there because they didn't get what they wanted? Were they short-cutting repairs that needed to be done? Something like that. We have supply chains. Obviously, I don't have to tell you how much the supply chains are broken down. These are all having to do with transportation. Now, in the United States, we appoint someone to take care of the transportation. And this guy's name right here is Pete Buttigieg. He's the one that's responsible for all of this. Now, this may not be his fault, but it's still his responsibility. When you're the head of a company, when you're head of an organization, head of a division, you may not have caused everything to happen under there, but you're responsible because you're at the top, and this guy's responsible. Now, he was on the news today, and do you think he talked about the train derailment in Palestine? Of course not. No, instead, he took the time to talk about diversity. And maybe we don't have enough colored people working on construction jobs in those neighborhoods, is what he had to say. So what he likes to do is go around, sort of like Kamala Harris, and insert themselves into all the political divided stuff when it comes to race and sex. He wants to talk about, he's a gay person and he has a baby and he needed time off and all those things. But what about his job? What about when we rate people on the merit of their job they do? And I would give him a big F. Now, even if you don't see this as some conspiratorial thing, which I'm not drawing that out, we have to take a look at this guy who's running things, and I would say he gets a big fat F. Now, the one thing I'd say is back to these movies where they might want to disrupt the water supply and they would attack it there. If we were going to be under attack by an adversary, a crazy, terrorist, or another country per se, they would probably want to attack the infrastructure. They'd probably take out the power, right? We hear about these EMPs going off. They might take out our water. So if we're in a war with China when we're actively shooting down their balloons, 4 of them, would it be possible to have some retaliation where they might attack some of our critical infrastructure? If we blew up a pipeline, hypothetically, like a gas pipeline that ran under the sea, could it be possible that there would be some retaliation where they would blow up our infrastructure if we blew up someone else's infrastructure? Would it be possible for that? Could it be possible that it could be an attack on U.S. soil, either by enemies, foreign or domestic? It's possible. And then again, it could just be an accident, because at the end of an empire, we see everything break down. In the book Atlas Shrugged, it kind of breaks this down, is that at the end, everything just starts breaking down. We have aging infrastructure. The railways, I hate to break it to you, they're not brand new. The airplanes, they're not brand new. The FAA computer system is ancient. The SWIFT monetary system that we move money around is ancient. Our credit card system, ancient. We haven't updated these things in forever because we're just putting good money after bad now. We live in an age of debt, and we're trying to funnel money that goes into all this malinvestment, and we're not reinvesting into our own infrastructure. So we have all this aging infrastructure. So it's possible that all the airline delays and we have all the train problems are because we just have really old systems. Also, we have a very low workforce participation rate, some of the lowest workforce participation rate in history. 6 out of 10 people are working, of working age. So maybe we don't have the best people working anymore. Maybe they're not smart. Maybe they haven't been trained. Maybe it's a combination of all of those things. I believe we're sort of in this age of incompetence. Age of incompetence. Oh, you're not smart? Don't worry. You can't pass high school? No big deal. I just saw in Baltimore, I think every school in Baltimore failed math. Like something like that. It was like 26 out of 26 schools all failed math in high school. They can't even do it. So we're at the age of incompetence. We still pass those. They're still going to graduate, right? And if you're not smart enough to work, then we'll just pay you to stay home. No big deal. And that's where we're at. Atlas Shrugged, at the end of society. But I believe it's time for personal responsibility to come back. I believe that it's time to take care of your own money. You don't want to take care of your own money? Put it in FTX, see what happens. You don't want to take care of your own health? You want to trust it to a doctor? See what happens. And now is the time for personal responsibility. Now, what I think is that this is good for me, and maybe good for you. Because if everybody is trending down, the age of incompetence is going down, then that means we don't have to work that much harder to be better than average. And if you want to be good and even great, you can really excel. If you want to be a savage, you can beat everybody. And it's up to you. So, personal responsibility or age of incompetence? Which way do you see the world going, and which way do you want to be involved? Let me know in the comments down below. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't, you can give me a thumbs down, that's okay. But at least tell me what you think about the video. And if you want to break any of these topics down more into its own video, and that's what I got, all right? To your success, I'm out.